today on page 71. This is chapter 6. The SD reference is SD 37.6, Sutta Discovery, volume 37, chapter 6. And there are actually two suttas here. They both have the same names, written on the board there. Arya Dana Sutta. Here, the title on page 71 gives you Sutta 2. Actually, there are two, 1 and 2. Sutta 2 is the longer one. And then Sutta 1 is the shorter one. Sutta 1 is given on page 75. Right? So you have the very short one and then the long one. Arya means noble. Dana, means treasure. Now in Pali, every letter is sounded. Pali is phonetical, it's very easy to pronounce. In fact, Pali is much easier than Sanskrit. Pali is not a spoken language. Pali is a very special language used by a group of ancient Buddhists to record some of the earliest teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha discouraged the use of Sanskrit because Sanskrit is like high-class language. So if I were to sit here and talk to you with an Oxford slang, I don't think you probably start giggling and you won't pay attention. So the Buddha just encouraged the monks to use local dialect, meaning language which everybody understands. And because of that, you see Buddhism spread all over the world. Today, Buddhism has spread to the West, to the US, to Europe. The Europeans are very keen on Buddhism, especially the Germans, for example. And only a couple of days ago, I had this black African writing to me, very interested to know about suttas. In fact, he said he wants to be a monk. He was a Muslim before, by the way. Very interesting. He was dabbling with different religions. So he tried to be a Muslim for a while, and then he found that now he wants to be a Buddhist. And he has this beautiful website about his religious quest. So this sutta you're holding in your hand is found online. You can see the the reference, the address at the bottom. It's available everywhere. Now the Buddha word can be found anywhere in the world if you just look for it. So these suttas are being used all over the world, wherever there's internet. In fact, there's interesting news now. There's a Wagner festival going on. Richard Wagner is a very famous German composer, one of the leading composers of German operas. It is said that he has written an opera on the Buddha, but which he didn't complete. And now they're celebrating his opera in the UK. And this, for the first time I've heard, they're going to use Pali in the opera. So they're going to translate the German or the English into Pali to celebrate. So this is a very interesting development. If you go online, Google, you put there Wagner, W-A-G-N-E-R, and then you put there Buddha, you probably get some news about this. If not, you can email to me, I'll send the news to you. So in other words, Buddhism is catching on very fast. And what is it in Buddhism that attracts all these people? This is the new interest in Buddhism, if you like. This is meditation, contemplative science, contemplative practice. This is what interests the Western people, the new generation, if you like. Because to them, Buddhism helps them to live a meaningful life and they can connect directly. Why is that so? Because Buddhism teaches us how to look within ourselves. Or, of course, if you look at Buddhism today, Vesak is coming. If you go around different temples on Vesak Day, you find there's so many kinds of Buddhism. A lot to choose from. There's this active kind of Buddhism, procession, walking, bowing down, things that never done in the Buddha's time, but you see them today. And there is, of course, chanting, pouring water over the Buddha's little baby Buddha. And this one is very popular, it's very, very international. Like, why do they use a so-called baby Buddha and pour water over him? And people just love this kind of ceremony, you know. I mean, I don't know how you feel when you pour water over the baby Buddha. I suppose one feeling would be you feel purified, you know. When you pour the water, it's like you're letting go of all your past or negative thoughts, unhappiness. Or you feel you're getting blessed. Right? A lot of people like to feel that way. But the most important thing you must remember, on Vesak Day, when you pour this water over the baby Siddhartha, it's not baby Buddha, it's baby Siddhartha, is to celebrate his birth. Vesak Day is special because we know Vesak Day celebrates a triple holy day, you know, birth, awakening, and passing away. So this said that when the child Siddhartha was born, this is a legendary story. The moment he was born, he could walk, he could talk. This is the story, okay? And because he's no ordinary person. And the next thing was that when he was born, it is said that his feet never touched the ground. The moment the feet touched the ground, the lotus came up to support. Of course, we know these are stories. In other words, they're legends. It's not that they are not true. These stories is a way of talking. Like you see a movie. You know, you see a movie. I mean, we love seeing those kung fu movies. You know, those flying daggers and stars and these martial arts people can move around. And we just can't do it. They can do it. We still watch it. We don't say, "Oh, this is all Charlie. It's not true." You know what? We watch. We get stuck with this kind of movies. We love these extra stories. You know. So to the ancient Indians, they like entertainment. We all like entertainment. Even today, we have more advanced, sophisticated entertainment. So when the Buddha story is told, it is a kind of entertainment for the people of those days. Sugarcoating. Whether the people believe this are literally true or not, of course, depends on the individual. Now, as Buddhists, if you say, "Oh, I don't believe all this fantastic story how the Buddha could go on and talk and so on, it's not possible," that's fine too. No problem with that. Your meditation won't be affected. Your path to awakening also won't be affected. Nobody's going to punish you for not believing, because these are not essentials. These are stories. Okay. In other words, no essential means you got to tease out the meaning. What does it mean? What does this pouring water over the baby Buddha or baby Siddhartha mean? So the story goes that the child was born, didn't touch the ground. Let's begin with that first. His feet didn't touch the ground. So here the symbolism means this person, this child, he's born into the world, but he's not going to be off the world. He is not going to get caught up by worldliness. He's not going to be worldly. He's going to be someone who can free us from the suffering of the world. The world here refers to our physical senses. Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body. 5 physical senses. The mind is the 6th. So the Buddha is someone who's able to help us rise above the weakness and limitations of our physical body by understanding nature of the mind. Okay? Can I get your book? Page 71. So this symbolism, in other words, is like an essence, you know. It records these wonderful secrets, teachings. Right? So the story is carried on. Stories are never lost because people love telling stories. But sometimes, in certain ages, some of the meaning gets forgotten. That is why we have classes like this. That is why we need to study the suttas, because we must retell the meaning of this. Because if we forget the meaning, you only carry the story, then it becomes superstition. We actually believe that's all there is to it, and then that's it, you know, and that's not going to be very helpful. What has got the story of a child who's born and can talk and walk and speak and touch the ground, what to do with us, you might say. But once you give the meaning, it means that we can, despite the weakness of our body, limitations of our body, we can, if we understand the mind, free ourselves from suffering. In other words, we're talking about meditation here. This is what has interested the modern people, the Westerners. They're turning to Buddhism because of this interest, mental cultivation, true happiness. What about the water? Pouring the water over the child Siddhartha. Well, the story went further. It's a long story, and I'm just picking the highlights. The story went that once this child Siddhartha is born, Indra, king of the gods, the lower heavens, the 32 gods, our things, came down on one side. He poured water to wash the baby. So the baby is clean, so he's just pouring out of respect. On the other side, Brahma, Maha himself, the high god of the Brahmins, came down. So it's a wonderful story to show that the gods of the people and the gods of the Brahmin both came down to pay respect to the Buddha. This is amazing ideology, to show that even the religions of those days paid respect to the Buddha. This is how the Indians, at least in the Buddha's time, even today, mind you, how they captured the imagination of the people to become followers. In fact, today, if you meet a really traditional Hindu, they will pay respect to the Buddha. They might even come for class, listen to the Dharma, but they will tell you, oh, Buddha is one of our gods. Buddha is part of our pantheon. So this is the success of Brahmins, how they have absorbed the Buddha back into their religion, so to speak. Of course, there's another long story behind this, how the Buddhists lost the Buddha in India, but now we are trying to get him back, so to speak. It's because the Brahmins told a better story than our story. The Indians are very good storytellers. But here we need to explain the meaning of the story. So the clearer the meaning of the story is, the more intelligent people we will draw. And this is what we need. We need intelligent thinking people as Buddhists. So these gods came down to pour water. They said that one of them pour warm water, the other pour cold water to respect to the child. One version of this story says that the water just appeared invisible, like fountain water just came out of the air, to wash the baby. Of course, water doesn't just appear like that. So they say, well, Mahabrahma held one of the pots, and then Indra or Lord Sakra held the other pot, to show respect to wash the baby Siddhartha. And when he took the 7 steps, again these two gods each held a parasol over the child so that he could safely walk. So these are beautiful stories, before television. And so all these stories capture the imagination of people, and then comes the real commercial. The Buddha is born, and you should respect the Buddha, practice the Dharma, practice all these qualities, So the Buddhists were amazing when they spread the Dharma. They could tell fantastic stories. And Asian culture is so rich with so many stories because of Buddhist culture. Jataka stories, for example. One of the most famous stories, the story of the elephant, the blind man and the elephant, right? The blind man and the elephant is a very important sutta. It's in the Udana, in one of the 15 books of the 5th Nikaya. It's a very ancient Buddhist story, and this is found in almost every other religion. They quote this story without knowing it comes from Buddhism. So stories are very important, and Vesak Day is a time when we tell a lot of these stories, but we must also know the meaning. So this is one way of looking at Buddhism, the story level. Story level means you have to explain the meaning. Then there is another level called Dharma level. Okay, Dharma level means we use direct words. So here you have what are called the noble treasures, there's 7 of them. 7 is the magical number. You got faith, moral virtue, moral shame, moral fear, learning, charity, wisdom. 7 treasures. Now, these are not stories, they are technical terms. So this can be said to be teachings on the Dharma level. So in the Book of Tools, the Dukkha Nipata and the Dukkha Nikaya, that is volume 4 of the 5 Nikayas, the suttas, the Buddha says, when you study suttas, you must ask yourself, what level is the sutta talking? There are 2 levels, at least. Is it Dharma level or story level? We must first understand this. And this is very important. And this is also what makes Buddhism a very tolerant religion. The suttas don't say, you don't hear any Buddhist teacher telling you, the word of the sutta is the final word, you must believe it, Buddhism is not a word-based teaching. There are other religions which are word-based teaching. Logos. Logos is the Greek word for the word. In a sense, the Chinese religion is also logos-based, word-based. Because the Chinese, they write the word for, to them it's really, Buddha is there. Or that word represents sun, God, or whatever. But in Buddhism, we say it's just a letter. It's in your mind. It's a very important teaching to understand. So story level means it's a signboard, it is a symbol, it needs to be interpreted. If it is Dharma level, that means you directly are trying to understand it and practice it. You directly practice it. So 2 levels of teaching, okay? We must remember when we read the suttas. How else do we recognize story level? Story level talk about people, about animals. So if you use this kind of medium, Buddhism, you can use so many mediums, very rich. Right? For example, there are talking animals in Buddhism. My cat talks to me very often, but all this is meow, meow, meow. But I more or less understand what he wants, because my cats are very clever. They will meow, and then they will go to the eating place. You know they want food. Right? Another one is, we are sleeping happily in the morning, 5:30 a.m. This big cat comes along and meows on our bed. Thankfully, it doesn't meow me, it meows at Ratna, because she's the one who prepares food for everybody. So this cat is saying, hey, wake up, time for food. So you see, these animals, they don't communicate, So the ancient Buddhists noticed this. They say, why can't we make stories with these animals? And animals talk. And you find this medium is so popular today. Children love this kind of story. So the Buddhists, we use this kind of stories. And this is what makes Buddhism so popular. I can't think of other religions that use this kind of video where animals talk. They will say, oh, animals are stupid. Animals don't go to heaven. Well, in Buddhism, animals go to heaven too. That's why you should treat your cats well. Then they become devas and take care of you. If you treat your animals badly, then they won't care for you when they become devas. And this is not my opinion. There are stories. For example, Kantaka, when he died, he was reborn in the Tawatingsa heaven, heaven of the 33. And so too this monkey and the elephant that took care of the Buddha in Harilaya forest. So these are stories. Whether you accept them to be real or not, these stories tell us to treat other beings kindly. And then there is teaching of rebirth. We can become those animals if we're not careful. Or some people actually want to be those kind of animals. This Richard Attenborough, that nature man on the TV. You know what is his wish? He says that if he dies, he wants to be reborn as a sloth. You know what's a sloth? It's the slowest of the animals, They move on the branch from one end to the other end, they take 1 hour. Very slow. So he loves it. He said this animal is fantastic. He wants to be an animal, to be a sloth. So I hope he become a happy sloth, right? But of course, as Buddhists will say, oh no, I don't think you want to be a sloth, because you will get caught and killed, for example. The point is, there is this cycle of life. So in Buddhism, we are told to respect all this. There are other beings around. So Vesak Day is this kind of celebration of not just human life, but life as a whole. This is Dharma teaching. Okay? So when we talk about the Buddha, we're also talking about the Buddha as one of the 3 jewels, Ratana, Tiratana, right? And then the second jewel is the Dharma, third jewel is the Sangha. They're called 3 jewels. Why are they called 3 jewels? Because they are precious. Of all the things in the world, jewels are an essence of value. But more valuable than any jewel in the world are these 3 jewels. And this is the basic message in the Ratana Sutta. The power of the 3 jewels. So, if you look at this kind of idea of jewels, treasure, we're talking about value. So the word Arya becomes very meaningful. Arya means noble. So here you got Arya Dana, noble treasure. Now, noble Arya is also another term used in ancient India to represent the white-skinned superior race that rules the people. These were the, according to scholars, they were the Central Asians. They migrated all over. A group of them. Some of them went to Scandinavian countries, became the Vikings, and then some went to Scotland, became the Gaelic-speaking people, Ireland, and then some went to Germany, and then France, Spain, and then, a very ancient group of them went to Greece and Italy, the Latins. So all these languages belong to the same family of languages like Sanskrit and Pali. That is one reason why we can understand, for example, the Germans are so easily they pick up Pali because they see many common language principles and structures very similar to their language. So they could easily connect with the early Buddhism, Indian Buddhism. They have all that cultural connection. In a sense, very interestingly, you might say that Western culture, Western European culture has more connection with early Buddhism than we have. I mean, if you compare Chinese language with Sanskrit and Pali, they're really totally disconnected, very different culture. Pali, Sanskrit, English, they're all alphabetical language. We use spelling words. But Chinese is pictorial. You can idea in a single letter. So you can imagine the difficulty translators have in those days. Okay. So here is where you find Buddhism becomes a translated religion. Translation is a very important aspect of Buddhist culture, of Buddhist life. This is one thing we often tend to forget. Buddhism is one of the most translated religions, many languages. We all take it for granted today. For example, you see this, our Sutta Discovery is now in the, I forget, 11 or 12 year. 11 years. Right? 46 volume, 9,000 pages. Not many people are excited about it. In fact, some of them tell me, those early years, they say, are you sure you can translate all this? You know Pali, and so that's very encouraging. Because I think only Westerners, scholars can translate it. I say, well, I love the sutta so much, I want to translate it. It's my way of making notes. But the point is, anyone can translate the sutta today if they want to. If you know Pali enough, you can translate it. This is not the case in all religions. Take the Bible, for example. There was this man, William Tyndale. He translated the Bible into English. And he paid it with his life. He was killed. He was burned at the stakes. I think it's by, I forget, probably Henry VIII. Those days, the Bible was still in Latin. So that only a certain group of people can understand it. That means only the nobility, the high class, the educated can understand it. The poor, the peasants listen to what these people teach, and that's all. They cannot understand themselves, they won't even quote it. It's like everything is in Pali. So I'll speak to you in Pali and explain to you. You have no chance to read it yourself. Can you imagine how difficult it is? So there's this group of people during the new period of religious awareness in Europe. They started translating it into English. They got into a lot of trouble. Why? Because whoever controlled the language of the religious scripture also controlled the people. It's all politics. Religion and politics are very close together. Religion and politics came together and flowered into the colonial period. When the British came here, they were Christians. After that, things began to change with the rise of new learning, science, medicine, and so on. Religion became more free. So we are born in a very good period in human history, where people are opening up their minds, religion is normal, that strong like before. Anyone can translate religious texts into English. Why I'm saying this is because it's to remind ourselves not to take all these wonderful translations for granted. They were not always so easily available. There was a time when it is very dangerous to translate any religious text. But here we are, times have changed. So we have the suttas to help us understand Buddhist practice more clearly. Why is sutta so important to us? Why do I find the suttas very interesting? Well, it's because it explains to me, to us, how to practice your life to be happy, how to keep the precepts, how to use this understanding of keeping the precepts to help you have mental development, peaceful mind, and then attain wisdom which frees us from suffering. This is the guidebook. Okay? So today we can see an example how the Buddha quoted all these teachings so that it can come right here into our very room here, to our very time, and we can still talk about this wonderful message that the Buddha himself has experienced in his own lifetime. We talk about Da Vinci Code. The Sutta Code is much more interesting. This is the teaching you got to decode. And when you decode it, your mind becomes clearer. Your life becomes more meaningful. So now you can see I've written these 7 treasures here. And I've underlined 4 of them. There's a very important reason there. This is to show how the Dharma is used. From 4, it can become 7. We can elaborate into it in other words. In other words, in the manner of speaking, we can summarize Buddhism using numbers. If you like to play with numbers, is another way. 1, 2, 3, and so on. For example, we say, what's the one cause of suffering? What is the one cause? You ask the question, any answers? What do you think? One cause of suffering.
Ignorance.
Normally you would say ignorance, right? Now then you can, of course one is too big, We talk about one thing and it's a lot to talk about. So we divide into 2. What are the 2 roots of suffering? Ignorance and craving. Then we can even further divide. What about 3? What are the 3 roots of suffering? More familiar now, right? Greed, hatred, delusion. And now what about 4? What are the 4 things that get us into trouble, cause us suffering? Not so familiar already. We have the 4 agatis, the 4 biases. Greed, hate, delusion, fear. Or if you like, you can have another alternative 4. The 4 influxes, asava, for example. Okay? You have what? Views, ignorance, craving, and existence, for example. 4. And so on. It goes like that until many, many numbers, depending how you explain. So here you see, you have, you can take a threefold training as a basic model, if you like. The 3 trainings. To be a Buddhist, we practice the 3 trainings. 3 trainings: training of the body. Body here includes physical body and speech. Number 2, training of the mind. Number 3, training in wisdom. 3 trainings. So if you take the 3 trainings, you find they're all here. With something extra, in fact. Right? Now, sila is there, the moral virtue, right? Number 2. And then samadhi. Okay, samadhi seems missing here. But faith is there. So this one we know is a special training for lay people. There's some centers I go to, they tell me, oh yeah, these people talk about meditation. And many of us can't meditate, can't attain jhana. We're so disappointed, so unhappy. I say, can you talk about something to encourage these people who can't meditate? So these are those teachings. No meditation is mentioned, so don't need to worry. And then you have wisdom. Okay? So in other words, it's not that meditation is thrown out. It's just not highlighted. It's behind this. Okay? You can take faith to kind of hinting at meditation, if you like. So you take 2 aspects, moral virtue and wisdom, and then you expand it into the 4 accomplishments. Faith, moral virtue, charity, wisdom. These are called the 4 accomplishments. Now you look at page 71. Where do we find the 4 accomplishments? The 4 accomplishments are found in a number of famous suttas. The best known place is called Digajanu Sutta. Digajanu is a nickname of this person. Digajanu means long knee. So I don't know how the knee, how long it looks. It's just a nickname. Huh? So here the Buddha says, if you want to be accomplished on a spiritual level, as a lay practitioner, these are 4 qualities you should cultivate. Accomplishment of faith, saddha sampada. Accomplishment of moral virtue, sila sampada. Accomplishment of charity, chaga sampada. Accomplishment of wisdom, panya sampada. And then it's defined. See, so you have the short version and then the long version. Then it's defined as follows. 1, what is the accomplishment of faith, saddha sampada? Here, Vyagapanja, the son of family, has wise faith. He has faith in the Buddha's awakening thus. So too is he, the Blessed One. For he is an Arahat, the fully self-awakened one, accomplished in wisdom and conduct, well-farer, knower of the worlds, fearless guide of tameable people, teacher of gods and humans, awakened, blessed. You know the Pali words for this, right? You chant it very often. How does it begin? Yeah, Itipiso Bhagava, right? Now notice, so what does Itipiso Bhagava and the rest of the chanting, what is it about? It is to remind us of the Buddha's awakening. We are all here today for one reason. The Buddha was awakened. We must never forget that. And this whole building is dedicated to the Buddha's awakening. Whatever we do here, the money we contribute, the energy we give, the time we spend here, is because the Buddha was enlightened. And we want to be enlightened like the Buddha also. What's so great about the Buddha's awakening? So now I'm going to explain to you reflection on the Buddha, Buddhanusati, reflecting on Itipiso Bhagava. You can reflect on each of the 9 virtues if you like, or you can have an overarching reflection on the quality of the Buddha, Buddhanusati, recollecting the Buddha. If the Buddha did not appear in the world, we wouldn't have met. You and I wouldn't come together here. You and I probably will be lost somewhere in some other teaching, or maybe believing in superstitious things. But here we are, at peace with ourselves, because the Buddha was awakened. The fact that the Buddha was awakened is itself amazing, because it shows that the Buddha could, through his own effort, without relying on anything outside of himself, a God idea, or priest, or chanting, or magical things, just by sitting quietly, reflecting on the truth, putting things together in his mind, and then he got it. You can say this is the scientific process, if you like. This is the philosophical process, even if you like. This is how knowledge and wisdom arises, through a person able to go deep into his mind. But in the case of the Buddha, he went far, far beyond even the greatest scientists, the greatest philosophers. He broke through to the other side. I can tell you for certain, the professors even, they can teach you all the deepest things about philosophy. But one thing I can tell you they never want to do is never to have a real breakthrough in philosophy. They will never want to know what does philosophy lead to. And after that, you don't have to study philosophy anymore, short of graduation, of course. Because if they do that, they'll be out of job. So philosophy goes in a circle. Philosophy keeps creating philosophical problems. And you go back, every lifetime you go back to the philosophy class, you'll be hearing what in previous life they have been talking about. But, in fact, I was in the Mounts University in Bangkok. We had Buddhist philosophy. You see, the Thai word for philosophy is prajna. Prajna. Prajna is a Sanskrit word, prajna. Okay? Panya. In Pali. The professor told us, although in Thai we say philosophy is prajna, but then it is not the same as the philosophy in the West, philosophia. Because philosophia means I love to think. Philia meaning love, and sophia, wisdom. I love wisdom, I love to think. It's just thinking, finding philosophical problem. But prajna, pra plus janya, to know in depth. Although same word for philosophy, but the meaning is different. So in Buddhism, philosophy is a tool we use, wisdom is a tool we use to get out of suffering. But philosophy doesn't have that idea at all. Philosophy creates more problems to think about life. Okay, so very different. So that's why you've got to understand the meanings of it when we use these words. So, coming back to this reflection of the Buddha again. So the Buddha was able to use his own wisdom to free himself. He doesn't need the God idea, he doesn't need the priest. Because in the Buddha's time, the priests were very powerful. They were trying to take over everything. So the Buddha spoke out. So in many sense, we must be this kind of person like the Buddha, who dares to stand out of the crowd and say, no, we do not accept the Brahminical teachings. Right? We can, through our own mind, create heaven here and now. We don't have to go up there to go to heaven. We can experience godliness through the four Brahma Viharas. Today we must also think that way. Meaning, even if you are unable, to go for chanting, it's okay. You can sit quietly, meditate. Even if you can't go to the four holy places in India, the Buddha says, wherever you are, if you keep the precept, that place is a holy place. To those who keep the precepts, every day is a precept day. So there you are. You find Buddhism tells us you can internalize the teaching anytime, anywhere. Buddhism is not a place. Buddhism is not a person. Buddhism is your inner peace. So when you reflect this Itipiso Gatha, these are some examples how to reflect on this, how the Buddha himself became enlightened. Then number 2, on page 71, what is the accomplishment of moral virtue? Sila Sampada. Here, Vajrapaja, the son of family, refrains from harming life, from taking the not given, from sexual misconduct, from false speech, from strong drinks, distilled drinks, fermented drinks, and that which causes heedlessness. These are the 5 precepts. Right? We have heard about the 5 precepts so often, but as you know, I often like to tell you why are the 5 precepts so important. The 5 precepts are the basic rules of the human game. That's a very nice way of putting it. I like to put it that way. The ground rules for being human. The 5 precepts makes us human. What does that mean? What is it to be a human? We have life, first precept. We want to be happy, meaning we have food to sustain us. We have things to enjoy, happiness. If someone takes that away, stealing, second precept. We want to be free to do with what we want with our body. That's the third precept. What's the third precept? Against sexual misconduct. Example of sexual misconduct, raping, molestation. In other words, we do not respect the person's person. Number 4, truthfulness. Right? The fact that gathered here is because you know, or at least you hope that I'm telling the truth. Otherwise, no point coming here. Right? So that's the 4th value, truth. And the 5th precept reminds us the mind is very important because it's the mind that makes us Buddha, so to speak. So all these 4 precepts, in a sense, is part of purifying our body in preparation to purify our mind. And if we are drunk or taking drugs, in our mind will be blurred and we won't be able to think carefully, then we are no better than animals. So if we like to kill, steal, commit sexual misconduct, do not know the truth, don't bother about the truth, and our minds all blurred, we fall below the human line. We become animals, pretas, asuras, hell beings. So the precepts keep us human. Of course, the precepts are not commandments because we're not perfect. We're not as strong to keep the precepts all the time. Sometimes we break the precepts. But one thing we all know, we never enjoy breaking the precepts. And if we have broken the precept, we think about it, we say, I should have done this, why do we do this? And then we wait for a wise monk to come along, or wise nun to come along and ask questions, right? Why? Because we know it is wrong. So that is our moral virtue. So once you become a streamer, you're so compassionate, you're so careful, you'll never consciously break the precept. Because this precept makes us human. This is quality control. If you keep your precepts well, lowest rebirth will be human rebirth, happy rebirth, if not higher ranks. That is why the precept is so important to us. Next one, number 3, the accomplishment of charity. Chaga. Now here's not dana, it's chaga. Chaga is bigger than dana. Chaga is charity. Here, Bhagavapaja, the son of family dwells at home with a heart free from the stain of stinginess, devoted to charity, open-handed, delighting in giving, devoted to almsgiving, delighted to have a share in giving. Notice the first line. The son of family dwells at home with a heart free from the stain of stinginess. You've heard of the saying, charity begins at home, right? Sometimes we wonder where it comes from, right? Right, here you are. This is the locus classicus, right? If someone asks you, where does it come from? I say, oh, Digajana Sutta, 8.54. Well, no, Anguttara Nikaya also can. Yeah? So, I tell you, when I study the suttas, I'm amazed. Many of these things you keep hearing is there, 2,500 years ago. Charity begins at home. Be generous to the people closest to you. Love them. Take care of them. Then they will love you too. And then you spread the charity to others bit by bit. Now what's interesting in this passage is the last one, the last quality, delighting to have a share in giving. Very often this last passage is not properly translated. To enjoy having a share in giving. This is something I experienced first time when I was in Thailand. The Thais just love giving. In fact, they made a joke about it. They say, you know why we love giving? Because we are Thais. I thought this is a national sentiment, Then later they told me, the word Thai is the Thai pronunciation of Deya. Deya means those who should give. That's why we are generous, because we are Thais. Okay? So it's a play on the Pali word, Thai. Of course, the next thing they will say is you're also free people, because Thai also get been free. So many meanings of it. Then they say, when the Chinese like to sell things, it's because the Pali word for Chinese is China, Chinati, something like to sell. So you like to sell things, okay? So this is a play on Pali words. So anyway, to have a share in giving. You see, sometimes, especially when Buddhism is strong in a place, you have to offer dana. So some people, they are so afraid of coming to temple. If you come to temple, you have to give donations. But if you share, it's not so bad. If there are even 10 monks who visit the center, if there are few of you, still you only need to put 1 scoop of rice in the monk's bowl. I told you before, how much food do we need? I once was sitting in this hawker center eating. I told myself, okay, how much food do we need? So I started counting the number of spoons of food I put into my mouth. 1 plate of food, you buy from the hawker to fill your stomach. I counted, 20 spoons is enough. Rice plus condiments, 30 already quite very filling already. Let's say, okay, on a generous level, 30 spoonfuls of rice or condiments. So let's say you have 50 people. Can you imagine if one person put 1 scoop into 1 monk's bowl, he gets 50 scoops, and he won't be able to finish it. So you know what I mean? You don't really need to put that much food. It's not difficult to support a monk. Alright? So don't think that, I don't go to the temple, after I go, I got to give donations, It's not like that. If you share it out, it's not so bad. In fact, you just give half a spoon, it's okay. You got many other people who give all this food. But the other meaning is this, fellowship. If you go together, you say, okay, Katina is coming, let us share. This road, all these temples, they need funds or something, or they need some help. Let's go and help them together. then according to the teachings, they say that in that case, in the future, your karma will be such that you have a lot of good friends and you also be rich. Of course, we don't do it just for that, The point is, doing it together is also economically viable. And also it's a way of encouraging other people to be practicing Buddhism. So this last line is talking about fellowship through giving. Then number 4, the last accomplishment. The accomplishment of wisdom. Here Gagapaja, the son of family, is wise, possesses wisdom directed to the rising and falling away of phenomena that is noble and penetrative, leading to the complete destruction of suffering. Very simple definition here. I told you just now no meditation is mentioned, right? Well, meditation is mentioned here under wisdom. Watching the rise and fall of things. Or in modern time we call this vipassana. Watching the rise and fall of things. Everything that exists in and around us, rise and fall. According to quantum physics, this is called the wave theory, a wave model. So this, in the suttas you find the 2 models used, just as in quantum physics. This is the wave model. Another model, especially used in the, not suttas, in Abhidhamma, is the particle model, where our thought moments are said to be like ping pong balls, one knocking to the other. Every moment, one thought moment at a time. So you have 2 models, the particle model and the wave model. Here for meditation, you have the wave model. You see everything happening inside you, outside you, all your 5 senses, how you cognize things, how you perceive things. They go up and down. You watch your breath. The breath comes in, there's a middle part, the breath goes out, and then start again, middle part goes out. So the breath also goes up and it's a wave. This is the basic pattern of life. Our whole life also is a wave. We are born, we reach our peak when we are between 20 to 40, and then we go down, and then we are reborn, and then up again, like mushrooms. Mushroom also like that, up, down, impermanent. So we reflect like that. So when you reflect like that, you are reflecting on impermanence, one of the most basic truths in life. That's where the secret of happiness lies, reflecting on impermanence. So and wisdom also lies there. So this is the 4th accomplishment. So there is meditation there. It appears as if meditation is not there, but it's given in a very simple way. To look around ourselves, rise and fall of things. How the tide comes and goes. Our life also like that. Impermanence, reflection on impermanence. So these are the 4 accomplishments. Then, if you look at page 75, Arya Dana Sutta 1, the first discourse on the treasures of the nobles. Right? You can say noble treasure or treasure of the nobles if you like. So here, the sutta is very short. You notice it's hardly half of about less than a page. Bhikshus, there are these 7 treasures. What are the 7? The treasure of faith, the treasure of moral virtue, the treasure of moral shame, the treasure of moral fear, the treasure of learning, the treasure of charity, the treasure of wisdom. These bhikshus are the 7 treasures. In Pali, Saddha Dhana, Sila Dhana, Hiri Dhana, Ottappa Dhana, Sutta Dhana, Jaga Dhana, Panya Dhana. Dhana, DH. So, and then there's a verse. Saddha Dhanang, Sila Dhanang, Hiri Ottappiyang Dhanang, Sutta Dhanang Cha Chago Cha Panya Sattamang Dhanang. This is a sloka, like the Dhammapada. This will help us remember the 7. The faith treasure, the moral virtue treasure, the treasures that are moral shame and moral fear, the learning treasure and charity too. Indeed, with wisdom as a 7th treasure. Next page says, Yasa ete dhana ati iti yapurisasawa adalido ti tang ahu amogan tassa jivitam. For whom there are these treasures, whether a woman or a man, he said not to be poor, not empty is his life. Tasma sadancha silancha pasadam dhamma dasanam Anu yunjeta medavi sarang buddhana sasanan ti. Therefore, to faith and to moral virtue, with bright faith in seeing the Dharma, the wise devote themselves, recalling the teachings of the Buddha. So, the teaching here, if you have these 7 treasures, they are the real treasures, you are truly rich. What is the meaning here? Some people may laugh at us and say, oh, you got wisdom, you are morally virtuous, so you think you're rich, but you got no money. The difference is this. The wealth of having and the wealth of being. This is the big Singapore conversation. This is the one. And some people say you're rich when you have things. Buddha says, no, you're rich when you are really, when you are, or when you is, also correct. No? This is the difference between being and having. I used to say, or some philosophers also like to say, what you have is not really yours. What you are, that is really yours. I think if you just let it float across your mind, you probably have a good idea what it means. I can say I have money, I have a house, I have this, I have that. The word have connect something outside of you to you. In other words, it's not yours. That's the meaning, If I have money, I got to put it in a wallet, put it in a bank, and suddenly something happened in America, the value of the money goes down. I've lost the money. I have no control over it. There was a time I went to Malaysia, I brought some coins, round gold color coins. I give to the ice water seller. He said, you see, tak boleh pakai this. No more using it already. Carry all that metal, useless metal. So what we have are not really ours. Temporary usage. Right? And again, you may have a lot of money in the world, but how much do you need to spend? After we die, there is a law in ancient India. I forget the exact name. If someone dies in that state, they got no children to take over, then the king will take over. The king takes everything. This is a very ancient law, even today. So, you might as well turn it into some trust fund or something. My point is, we don't need much to be happy. On the other hand, if you are happy, like a monk, he has food, he has robes, he has a place to stay, or he can stay under a tree, and if he's sick, he has simple medicine to take. He's very happy. So he has everything, so to speak, because he is happy. If you are truly happy, you have everything. If you are truly happy, you can enjoy wherever you are, you're happy. So what the Buddha is talking here is the real definition of happiness, quality control. What is really happiness? Real happiness means the capacity for enjoying something. That is why being wealthy is not the real definition of happiness. You have things, but it doesn't mean you're happy. Of course, if you have things, you're happy. Anatapidika, that's great. So don't forget this, being and having. What you are and what you have. Very different things. So here, the Arya Dana is showing that what you have and what you are no different. For example, faith. Right? So here, you find this, the 4 accomplishments divided into 7. Right? How does that happen? Faith is added as number 1, because this teaching is for lay people. Lay people need faith to be drawn to the teaching. What does faith mean here? It's not blind belief. The Buddha does not go around frightening people and say, you better come and listen to the Dharma, otherwise you'll be born in hell. He doesn't say that. He's saying that you are joyful when you come here. You feel happy when you listen to the Dharma. So this is a faith that you have a wonderful connection. You feel happy when you come here. You feel safe when you come here. So you have that faith. Very simple level, that's the meaning. And I don't think people will, question you why you didn't come for 1 week, or where did you go, like as if you committed a terrible crime. We Buddhists are not like that, right? So we're happy when you come. We are also happy you don't come. Slightly sad, but of course we prefer you come. But the point is, we don't force people. The idea is to make the place so happy that people just want to come. They have that wonderful face, joyful face. Sometimes this is called affective faith. This scholar called Rupert Gethin, he says there are two kinds of faith, cognitive faith and affective faith. Cognitive faith is through knowledge. The pastor tells you, oh, God is great, have faith, believe, don't question. That's cognitive faith. Affective faith is you listen, you feel so peaceful, you feel happy, and you want to come again to this peaceful place. That's why you want to go to Bodh Gaya. You want to go to the four holy places because we feel those places are very peaceful. So that is faith. No? And then if you have faith, then you want to go on. What do I do next? So 2, 3, 4, there actually is a set. 3 and 4 are elaborations of number 2 actually. Moral virtue, sila. Moral virtue deals with actions of body and speech. Look at the 5 precepts again. First precept, not to kill. Second, not to steal. Third, not to commit adultery or sexual misconduct. This deal with the body, right? So if you keep these precepts well, your body is restrained. Your body is cultivated. It's called pavita kaya. Body is cultivated. And then the 4th precept against false speech, it is dealing with speech. So body and speech are cultivated. But 3 and 4 talks about psychological aspects and social aspects of moral behavior, if you like. Why should we keep the precepts, or how to keep the precepts well? Through moral shame, through moral fear. Moral shame, hiri, that means shame here is what would people say of us, For example, if I were to steal something from a shopping center, there are cameras there, and there are people watching. We think people are not watching, but they're watching, they know somehow, and they say, oh yeah, look at the Dharma teacher is stealing something, right? And then they won't come for Dharma class anymore. Or worse, they say, oh, Buddhists like that, right? So that's moral shame. I should not do this because, people think, right? Of course, this became the idea of faith in Chinese culture. So this is the idea of moral shame. It's also in a way to respect others. People who care for us, my children, my family, what happened to them? I'll put them in shame. So it's a very social kind of idea. We want to be in harmony with everyone else. Social fear. So this is one idea. Now moral fear is psychological. Moral fear is more the fear of karma. Alright? Some people may say, I don't care what people think. But then there's karma, If you take something which is not yours, or if you break a precept, it generates bad karma. It's going to come back to you. It's going to follow you. And that's not good. Or even if you don't do karma, you somehow will feel that you might be punished for it, by the law, for example. So this moral fear sense of strong because there are consequences to it. So in a sense, you can say moral fear is a bit like a self-respect, if you like. Okay? You say, let me respect myself. Okay? Well, moral shame is you respect others. You don't want to bring shame to your family. Of course, you can reverse this too. You can also take moral shame as self-respect in the sense that I should not do this because, I'm a Buddhist and I keep the precepts. Then moral fear is other people, in the sense you hurt other people. If you steal something, you're taking away from someone else. So you reflect in that way. There are different ways of explaining this. Moral shame, moral fear. Moral shame, moral fear, hiri or tappa, they're so important that the Buddha calls them, they are the 2 world protectors, lokapala. They protect the world. Here again, we see these terms used symbolically. The twin pillars of society, moral shame, moral fear. In other words, for society to exist harmoniously, meaningfully, people must have moral shame, moral fear. Otherwise, it's not safe. The moment you step out of your house, you'll be in trouble. People out there don't have moral shame, moral fear. They do anything they like, rob, kill, steal, rape, and so on. Society will not be safe. Society is only possible when you have moral shame, moral fear. So the precepts also talk about the possibility of a harmonious society. If individuals behave in a moral way, then society, the good society, is possible. Right? And then you have learning, the 5, sutta. Now sutta literally means hearing. Because in the Buddha's time, to learn things, knowledge comes mostly through hearing. You want to hear something, you come, no notes will be given. You'll be listening directly. In fact, if you go to Indian temples there, you see this traditional setting, no books, and they just somehow listen to the priest chanting. Right? But sutta also means learning, because wisdom arises through listening. So like now, you're listening. See? So the more you listen, the wiser you become. So here, the Buddha advises lay people to increase their wisdom by listening. But listening has a broad meaning. If we listen to people, then we really respect. To respect people means to listen to them. And respect is a broad meaning. In traditional Chinese culture, respect is only towards older people. But in Buddhism, respect is to everyone. Respect means our accepting others just as they are. Whether they are children or old people or same age. If I respect you, I listen carefully to what you're saying. That means presence. I must be present right here, in body and mind, listening to you. Then I respect you. And when I do that, then I understand you better, we become better friends. In counseling also, there is listening. So this listening, you can talk a lot about it. In fact, another way of looking at Buddhism is the teaching of listening. And the true arahats are called listeners. You know what's the Pali word for that? Listener? Savaka. Savaka. Sutta, sunati means he hears. To hear, sunati. Sutta means heard. Not sutta, sutta mantiu. Heard, hearing. And the one who hears is called savaka. And as you know, savaka also refers to the Buddha's disciple. We translate in English as disciple. The word disciple, from the word disciple you get the word discipline. But that is a Western idea, Western category, we say. But you translate savaka properly, it is the one who listens well. That's the Buddha's sayings. Okay? So Buddhism is a teaching of listening. Listening comes wisdom. So this is another way of looking at it. Learning what? Learning the suttas, learning dharma, learning about yourself. And then you practice it. See, charity comes like number 6. You practice it by giving. We practice by showing our charity. When we give something to people, what we are doing, we are showing our appreciation of their being. We are happy with them, so we give something. We give things, we give energy, we give time, and so on. Right? So charity is not just giving things, we also can give non-tangible things. Right? So charity, chaga. Then the last quality is wisdom. So we practice all this 1 to number 6, then wisdom arises. Wisdom is, we have experienced life, we're able to understand what really is going on. When we go through life doing all these things, wisdom arises. Now how does wisdom arise? One way of looking at it is, there are 2 ways wisdom can arise. Through suffering and through joy. More often through suffering. Never look down on suffering. Do not run away from suffering. I'm not saying you should enjoy suffering either. What I'm saying is, if you feel you're suffering, there's something there to learn. Of course, if you react negatively, you say, why me? You use the I, me, my language, that is stupid suffering. But if you don't use I, me, mine, in other words, you don't own the suffering, you don't own the pain, you ask, why is there this suffering? What is going on here? Don't use I, me, mine. Don't identify with it. Because what you suffer, other people also have gone through it. Then you have something to learn. Because suffering means something is missing, something is not right. In a sense, there's nothing wrong with us, but the conditions somehow are not right, so we suffer. Look for the conditions. Why is there this suffering? Instead of saying, why am I suffering? Not very helpful to ask, why am I suffering? Rather ask, why is there this suffering? Define the suffering, right? And then you discover there are conditions, causes that led to it. And then once you know that, you know what to do. Remove the conditions. And then after that, work on it, act on it. These are the Four Noble Truths. Suffering is trying to bring us wisdom. The other one is joy. If you're so happy, you say, oh, this is good. I want to read the Sutta some more. Something wonderful is happening now, accidentally. I've been looking for proofreaders, and people here and there email saying, I want to help you proofread the Sutta. So I sent one or two, and then they're so happy. They send back the one. The English is not that perfect, but it's okay. They read through some minor mistakes. I put double words and so on, and they correct it. But the wonderful thing, when they wrote back, they said, I feel so happy when I read the Sutta. I never know there's such teachings, I said, good, here are some more suttas, So they've been reading this sutta, they feel so happy, So I thought myself, this is a wonderful ministry, proof reading ministry. So these people, and they're kind of, not just from Singapore, they're from all over the place, So people feel joyful, and then they want to go on experiencing this joy by reading the suttas. So this is another way how we can learn things, through being joyful, like through meditation. Like I said, more commonly, we learn through suffering. And people are very happy when I tell them this. They come for counseling, They say, why must I suffer? I've got so much problem, and then they list all the problem one by one, So then I will tell them, I say, you know why you're suffering? You're suffering because, number one, you're a very kind person, you're very compassionate, that's why you're suffering. The moment I say that, they're so happy, And they say, how can nobody tell me this? I say, well, the Buddha they're teaching us all these things, You're suffering because you're happy, you're kind, and you're wicked and evil. You will be suffering, you make other people suffer, And after that, it gets worse for you. Then you suffer twice. So number two, you're suffering because you own the pain. You say, I, me, mine. I say, remove I, me, mine. And you look at it just as a problem, solve it, and then we go on from there. So you see, Buddhist counseling is a very effective way of dealing with problems. So far, in Buddhist counseling, I only need one session per person. One session enough already, with or without meditation. You go to all those clinical counseling, you take many sessions, you pay a lot of money. Right? Of course, some of those problems are really deep, ingrained emotional problems. But the normal problems that we have in daily life, you just need one session. You can even do it yourself by understanding the Four Noble Truths, how suffering actually is a very good teacher. Right? So that is another aspect of wisdom. So with that, we come to the second sutta. The second sutta is slightly expanded. This is on page 76. You find the 7 treasures are mentioned, and then they are defined. Number 1, we have already read that, on the treasure of faith, and then treasure of moral virtue, about the 5 precepts, and then the treasure of moral shame. Okay, there you are. This one we have not read yet, section 4, page 77, section 4. And what bhikshu is a treasure of moral shame? Here bhikshu is a noble disciple is one who has moral shame. He feels moral shame towards wrong bodily actions, wrong verbal actions, wrong mental action. He is endowed with moral shame towards evil and unwholesome things. So in other words, we reject negative body, speech and mind. And then the moral fear, very similar, just like the one I told you. He has moral fear towards negative things. And what about learning? Section 6, page 78, section 6. Here bhikshu is a noble disciple, is deeply learned, remembers what he has learned, right? So make an effort to remember what you have learned. That is why we often repeat teaching, so that we don't forget. Builds up what he has learned, is deeply learned, master of learning, a store of learning. those teachings that are good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, both in the spirit and the letter, both in meaning and phrasing, that affirm, should be affirm, not affirms. Let's correct this one first. Let's make a note. That affirm the holy life, fully complete and pure. Such teachings he has learned much, remembered, recited verbally, investigated with the mind, penetrated well by view. Notice the last part. Remember and then recite it, and then question it, investigate, and then understand it. So step by step to learn. So Buddhism is a learning religion. And the last one, wisdom. Here bhikshus, a noble disciple is wise, possesses wisdom directed to the rising and falling away of phenomena. That is noble and penetrative. Noble, that means you are morally virtuous, you become more morally virtuous. Penetrative, that means you attain wisdom, you cut through suffering, leading to the complete destruction of suffering. And then everything, the same verse repeats itself as before. So the sutta ends there. So, just nice, we finish everything here. Alright, any questions? A bit of time for questions. So these teachings remind us of how simple and natural it is to be Buddhist. It is to practice body, speech and mind, understanding body, speech and mind, and in a sense, taming them. There's another word we can use, one word, taming. The Pali word is Dhamma, D-A-M-A, to tame. This is to use the figure or parable of animals, the 6 animals or 5 animals. There is one very interesting sutta, it's called a Chapana Sutta. Chapana means the 6 animals. Pana means what breathe. Here we can translate animals. The sutta says, imagine there are 6 animals. You got a monkey, you got a dog, you got a jackal, a snake, a bird, and a crocodile. And they're all tied together by a strong rope. And this hunter ties all the ends of the rope together. So these 6 animals, they all have different behavior. What do you call this? The bird wants to fly up into the sky. The dog wants to go to the village, find some nice warm ash to lie in. The monkey wants to look for a tree to climb into. And then, so all these animals go in 6 different directions. But the strongest one will drag them away, depending on who is the strongest. So these 6 animals move here, move there, aimlessly, so to speak. Then the farmer takes the center of the rope where all the ropes are tied together and ties them strongly to a strong pole that is sunk, the pillar sunk into the ground, immovable. Now the animals struggle anyway, any direction, they are limited in their movement. Then they move here, move there, they are still held back by the strong post or pole. So in the end, these animals become so tired, they just sit quietly wherever they are. That's the story. So now we've got to ask what's the meaning, right? The meaning, the 6 animals, they represent our 6 senses. Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. Even as we listen to the sutta, you find our minds thinking of this, thinking of that. Unfortunately, no phone right today, right? But our mind is running here, running there. But you're able to focus your mind here. The other 5 animals do not fly around, do not run around. Right? So when you meditate, all these 6 animals, the 6 senses, or 5 of them, especially the physical senses, are trained, they're calm. The mind becomes more clear. So in a sense, we can say the precepts are to tame the animal inside us. Here again, notice we're talking about the animal world. We're talking about the subhuman plane, right? We don't want to fall below the human realm. Because if you break the precept, you fall into the animal realm. If you like, you can take the 6 animals like 6 kind of beings, the pretas and so on. So we don't have to die to be reborn into those strands. Even in this life itself, we can behave like those beings. So if our mind all the time we are caught up with being addicted to something, it's a preta mind. Human body but preta mind. And then when we die, human body run out dead. But preta mind remains. The preta mind is reborn, it looks for a preta body. That's how it happens. Another person doesn't want to learn. Say, oh, sutta is so difficult. No need to do sutta, just chant enough. Make married good enough. Not enough. You make married, you be reborn, very handsome elephant next life. Handsome puppy in Singapore. The people take care of you, but still animal world. You get all the good karma returned to you, yes, but you don't keep the precepts. You don't enjoy that freedom. The human level won't come to you. So you got to behave human also, or even above human level. And the human level means you really deal with the mind. That's where the real control is. Understand your mind, free your mind, and then you are truly in charge of yourself. So this is the teaching of the six elements on another level. Okay, any questions or not? No questions, eh? Yeah?
About hunters.
What about hunters? What you mean? Is it right livelihood or not? Is it? No.
It's a hobby.
Okay. We'll be talking about livelihood, will we? Oh yes. One or two more lessons on right livelihood. Eh? So I'll give a short answer today. There are no, you see, when we talk about livelihood, it's not something we do all the time. It is the action which is wrong, not the person. Okay? So I wouldn't say the hunter is a bad guy. Rather, I should say hunting is a bad action. Okay? So although the person may say, what's your job? He says, I'm a hunter. But he doesn't kill animals every moment. It's when he's killing it is wrong. So that's what we should avoid. But if this person, he realizes that it's wrong, and he changed his lifestyle, at the end of it he reflects on all this, it's possible he can be reborn in a happy place, but it's difficult. You really need the help of someone like Sariputta. Sariputta was very wise. He helped a public executioner, to be reborn happily. The Buddha helped a serial killer called Angulimala. So Buddhism can help anyone. There is hope even for people in prison, and these prison people are very happy, when they hear about Angulimala. So what we're saying is hope, no matter where you have fallen. But you must not get caught up with it. You get caught up with this negative action, that's very difficult. Because once the karma becomes habitual, we're no more aware it is bad. But it still acts on us. For example, the butcher may say, oh, I'm doing this, it's a good thing, I'm selling meat to raise my family. No, it's not. Because the killing will take its course. So this is one of those things which are not easy to explain. Suffering is there. Animals suffer. But I think if we allow science and technology to go its way, these things can change. In fact, nowadays you find there are many kinds of food we can take. Meatless meat, things like that. So this is the future. Somehow, hopefully things can change. For us as Buddhists, what we try to do is don't kill. We will try to cut down on destruction, things like that, to respect life more. Because if you live in a world like this, there will be always beings that are killed and die, but we should try our best to minimize that suffering or try to avoid it. It's not a perfect world. That is why Buddhism arises in this world, because it's not perfect. So we value life. So we try our best to respect it, protect it. Okay, so we end here. Right? That's nice. Let us spend a short moment reflecting. Right, this is our last lesson before Vesak. So this is a very happy moment for us to remember the presence of the Dharma. It's still with us. The suttas are always there for us to reflect on. We just need to open our minds and open our hearts. And remember, this happiness we are enjoying now was the ripening of many good karma. But we should not take this for granted. We should continue in this right course to be happy within our minds, within our hearts, and to share the Dharma with others. Reflecting in this way is good karma. With the power of such good karma, may our minds quickly focus, especially when we meditate. May we be at peace with ourselves, safe from all harm and danger. May we grow in wisdom. Above all, may in this life itself we attain spiritual liberation, namely strengthening. In this moment of peace, let us send out our loving kindness to all those people who have been helping this center, to all the monks living here, all the teachers who come here, all the people who come here for solace, and to all relatives and friends, especially those with whom the Dharma have not touched. May they come closer and realize the Dharma. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.